Hi everyone, in this YouTube video today I'm going to be taking you through how to work with and understand a commercial pattern, as well as using the information on the commercial pattern to cut out your fabric for the shirt that you are going to make. The commercial pattern that we are using for this course is the New Look pattern, and there are 5 different options of shirts that you can make. I've chosen to make option B here, which is sleeveless, however still incorporates darts and the use of interfacing. These techniques are important as they are probably something you've never used before, and part of our fashion and jewellery design course is learning new techniques and developing our skills further than what you normally would doing the normal textiles course. When we look at our pattern, there's lots of information included within. As you can see here, the 5 different options that we have are listed on the page. However, we are also provided a piece here that tells us what pattern pieces are required for each different option. So it's important to make sure that if you want to make option C, that you're checking that you have pattern piece 10, 11, 9, 8, and you're checking it off to make sure you have all the different pattern pieces that you will need, okay, because each one is different. Now this is what the back of a commercial pattern looks like. It can be quite confusing to read because there are lots of different components to it. However, it's all there to help us improve the final outcome of our shirt. So as you can see here, we have lots of information. So we have our sizing up the top here. So this helps us determine, based on our measurements of our bust, waist and hips, what size pattern we should use. It's important that when it comes time to choose the size that you've made, that you don't compare it to the size that you are from normal clothes bought at the shops, because these are very different. A size 8 at the shops will not be the same as a size 8 on one of these patterns. So make sure that you use the measurements rather than just guessing based on what you wear from clothes bought from the store. It will be very, very different. Now this is in inches, and unfortunately in Australia we do not use inches as a standard unit of measure. However, it will be easy to go onto Google and find a conversion site that can convert inches into centimetres for you. We have down here information telling us how much fabric we will need based on what top we would like to make. Okay, this is again in yards, however it can easily be converted. We then have some information. It says on here interfacing, so that shows us that we're going to actually need interfacing to complete this. And then it gives us a list of suggested fabrics as well. Okay. It also says some extra requirements down the bottom telling us that we're going to need one small button to attach to the top and the back of our shirt. Now when we're using proper patterns that are bought from the shop, the actual pattern itself is often very thin, very fragile. It's almost like tissue paper. So for the purpose of this course, we have actually gone through and cut out and photocopied pieces of paper based on the patterns that you will need to make each different shirt option. Okay, so it's going to be much sturdier for you and much clearer and easier to read. This is an example of all of the pieces of a pattern that you will receive and need to cut out in order to make your shirt. Now we've tried to label them as clearly as possible, and unfortunately the top and the back pieces were far too big to just print on one. So as you can see here, we've listed down the bottom, we have pattern 1 and number 1, so that's piece number 1, pattern 1, piece number 2, and so on. So once you cut these out, you'll need to use sticky tape to stick them together to form one full piece. Now it's really important that when you're working with patterns that you're reading the information provided to you. So as you can see on this one here, this is a front piece for pieces or pattern styles A and B. You need to cut one on the fold, and there it's telling us down this side that this is the center fold. Here we have the darts, okay? So it's telling you here are the darts. It's telling you along the side here all of the different sizes available. So for this pattern, I'm going to cut out at a size 12 because it is much easier to make your shirt smaller and go from it being a 12 to say a size 10 and cutting back, rather than cutting out a size 8 and trying to make it go up to a size 10. It just won't work. So make sure when it comes time for you to cut out your pattern pieces that you are clearly reading what it is asking of you. Make sure that you're not cutting too much out, and make sure that you're trying to stick to the line that you need to. Along here it can be quite confusing because 6, 8, 10 and 12 all come to form on the same line. So just make sure you take your time. I should also point out that when it comes time to cut your pattern, that the lines indicated under each size are actually different. So some are small dots, some are small dashes, dash dot dash, bigger dashes, and dash with 2 little dashes. So there's a bit of a pattern there, making each one different, and that will help you when it gets to these trickier parts where they get closer together, or some of the parts of the pattern where it gets to be like this. This will help you make sure that you're cutting out the right size. So for this next step, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to cut out all of the pattern pieces that I need to make my shirt. Just make sure that you're using normal paper scissors and not using fabric scissors, as that will blunt the fabric scissors. Now, as you can see, I have cut out all of my pattern pieces. However, my parts, piece 1 and piece 2, are still in separate pieces, as I'm going to show you now how to put them together. So let's look at piece 2. Now, we've tried to make this as simple as possible, and we've tried to leave really distinct markings on the patterns so that you're able to overlap them. So if we have a look down the bottom, this is the third piece, so this is the bottom of our back. Okay, now as you can see, there are 2 lines here going straight through the pattern. And up the top on the second pattern here, we also have those 2 lines. So the aim that we tried to create was that you would be able to, just like that, overlap those 2 lines on top of those ones, line up the line there, and ensure that these lines on the side are also aligned, and that would be how you would put your pattern back together. So I'm going to use a weight there to hold it. I have some sticky tape, and I'm just going to come through, and I just want to, oops, that wasn't, just want to stick it together. Okay, and there's half of our pattern. Up here we then also have an overlap of the back part written. Okay, so what we can do is we can bring this one over the top, and I actually might try and hold it up to the light and overlap the back that's written twice on there, and that is just like that. Beautiful. So as you can see, the word back is in line. Our parts down the side here are also in line, so I'll use a weight to hold them in place. And then I will come through with some tape and tape it together. Now we want to make sure that we're being as accurate as possible when doing this, because otherwise, if you are out by a few centimetres on piece 2 and then you do piece number 1, which is the front, really well, then your pattern is really going to be quite wonky, and that will affect it when it comes time to cut out your shirt. You'll have a back that's either longer or shorter than the front pieces, and that might affect the final outcome. So we hope that we've kind of streamlined and made this a bit simpler, but please just make sure you take your time and have a look at what's going on around you. Okay? On pattern piece number 1, which is our front, we have darts. Now I've left these darts fully intact, I haven't cut them out, and it's important that when you cut out the fabric for the front that includes your darts, that you do not unpin the pattern piece from the fabric. We've got a technique that we're going to show you in the next video, which shows you how to transfer the darts from the pattern piece onto your fabric. So make sure you keep them intact and don't cut them out. I'm now going to take you through how to use your pattern pieces to cut out your fabric. So I've been to Spotlight and we have some linen, washed cotton linen, non-stretch fabric here that I'm going to use for my shirt, just in a simple grey colour, because when we have darts included, if we had really straight lines, it would distort them and it would be a lot of effort to try and get them still looking nice and formative. Okay, so what we need to do is you need to determine what is the right and wrong side of your fabric. So with a fabric like this, it can be quite tricky to determine as both sides are the same. However, if you have a pattern on your fabric, that's going to be great, because what we want is we want the pattern to be on the outside and the material that would probably be plain would be on the inside of our shirt. So after you've determined what side of the fabric is the right side, you're going to place the fabric in your hands like this. Now I'm holding the selvages. So the selvages are the side that are bound together when the fabric has been produced. Okay, so there's a bit of fraying on the edge and there's a lot of long dots, or lots of dots going down the side here. This side of the fabric, sorry, compared to the top side here where there are distinct threads coming out, you can see that there is a difference. This is not straight, the top side here, because this is the side that the person at the shop has cut, whereas the edges down the side here, the selvages, are very straight. So what we need to do is we need to fold our fabric in half, long ways, okay, so it's nice and skinny, and we need to fold it selvage to selvage, so both sides selvage to selvage with the good side in the middle. Okay, so if this was a fabric with a pattern, right now your pattern would be tucked away on the inside and you would just see the ugly side of the fabric. Okay, so you need to make sure that you're getting this right. You also need to make sure that you have lots of space on your table, because we are going to have to lay our fabric out lengthwise. So now that your fabric has been laid out nicely on the table and the selvages are together with the right sides facing, okay, we can begin to place our pattern pieces onto the fabric. So reading what the pattern piece is asking us, we're going to place the front here and we need to cut one on the fold. So we're going to lay it this way, the fold being on this side here. We're going to make sure it's on the fold, and we're going to try and use up all of our fabric wisely, okay? We don't want to just pop it in the middle here and have wasted space, all right? We want to try and position it out like a puzzle piece so that we're using all of our fabric and not wasting so much. What we need to do is we then need to get some pins, and we need to pin down mainly the corners onto your pattern. Make sure that it's not coming over the pattern and onto the fabric. Okay, and you might need a few in the middle just to really keep it all intact. Okay, we also have other pattern pieces that we need to lay on. So our front facing, cut one on the fold of fabric, and as we can see here, this is telling us where the fold is. So we can lay this way, and then this is the back facing, so we need to cut two of this. So it doesn't matter where this is positioned, just as long as we're able to cut two. So it would be very good for us if we can pop it up here and use that space wisely. We then have our back piece. So our back piece is asking us to just cut two, and we're not cutting it on a fold or anything like that. So we can just position this one, oh, that might fit actually, up here. Lovely. So go ahead now and place all of your pattern pieces onto the fabric and pin them down so that you can cut them out. So now when you're happy with where the pattern pieces have been positioned and they're pinned down and secure, you can go ahead and cut them out. Make sure when you're cutting out that you're using long, big strides and you're not doing small, snippy cuts, and that you're cutting out as close as possible to the pattern piece. However, you're not cutting onto the pattern piece. Now when you've been through and you've cut out all of your pattern pieces, it's important to remember that pattern piece number 1, please leave it intact, as this has the darts on there, and we have a great way of helping you transfer these darts from the pattern onto your fabric. So just leave that one folded up and together. All of the other pattern pieces, as we can see here, it asked us, it was a front facing and there's the center fold down here. So what you might like to do is you might like to actually unpin this and put on FF for front facing, or a number 6 on there to show that it's pattern number 6. For my fabric, as it is very similar on both the good side and on the bad side, I'm actually going to unpin all of my pieces, and on all of the good sides I'm going to put a little G on there just with some fabric chalk, so that I am always reminded which side is the good side, so that I don't get confused when sewing, because if you sew a good side together and a wrong side together, and it'll all end up a mess and it won't actually come together as easy. So you can go ahead and do that. You might like to mark in some notches. You might like to put on there that this is a back piece, front facing and a back facing, okay, just so that you know what's happening, and when it comes time to put your shirt together, you understand what pieces are what. Thank you all for watching this video. I hope that this first video showing you how to read and understand parts of a commercial pattern, as well as how to use the pattern pieces that we've created for you, and how to use them to then cut out your fabric ready to start constructing your shirt. So this is video 1, so keep an eye out for the other videos that will help you construct your shirts, as well as ones that will show key techniques such as the interfacing and darts along the bust line.